Well, let's just dive right into it. If you were anywhere near Reddit around the July 9th release of GPT 5.6, you probably saw this exact flavor of chaos. Real-world frustration was everywhere. People were logging into their ChatGPT Plus account, seeing these completely new model names, and just scratching their heads wondering, wait, why do I have access to some of these but not the others? It was honestly a pretty messy launch day for users trying to make sense of a radically changed ecosystem.
So the million-dollar question is, what on earth is actually happening with GPT 5.6? We need to figure out what these new model names actually mean, and more importantly, how you can leverage them for your own day-to-day workflows. Because listen, we aren't just looking at a simple run-of-the-mill model upgrade this time around. OpenAI has completely restructured how they offer their models, fundamentally splitting the whole thing up by capability, speed, and cost.
So, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to demystify this newly released ecosystem. We'll break down the hard facts, the preview pricing, and the API mechanics. But even better, we're going to give you a highly actionable, data-backed masterclass on mastering a brand new workflow that these models make possible.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll meet Sol, Terra, and Luna. Then, we look under the hood at the API updates, dive into the dual model strategy, unpack AI bias and blind spots, and finally, we'll get to the final verdict.
All right, Section 1. Meet Sol, Terra, and Luna, the brand new GPT 5.6 ecosystem.
Let's clear up the confusion on these three new capability tiers right now. If we look at the cost versus capability breakdown for every 1 million tokens, it tells a pretty clear story. Sol is your flagship tier, priced at $5 for input and $30 for output. That's your engine for deep reasoning tasks. Terra? It literally halves that cost, perfect for your everyday balanced tasks. And then there's Luna. It drops all the way down to just $1 for input and $6 for output. It is built from the ground up for sheer speed and high-volume classification.
The specific benchmarks here are exactly why this matters for your strategy. Sol is absolutely crushing it with an 88.8% score on Terminal Bench 2.1. Terra is incredibly pragmatic. You're getting GPT 5.5 level performance at half the price, which is a massive win. And Luna, even as the cheapest option, is still powerful enough to beat Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.8. Basically, it's like a giant puzzle. You can comfortably prototype on Terra or Luna, and then escalate to Sol only when you hit really hard debugging or complex orchestrations.
Moving right along to Section 2, Under the Hood, looking at the mechanics of the API engine room.
Okay, developers, this one's for you. You now have immediate, self-serve access to incredible granular control. And the best part? Absolutely no waitlists. We are officially moving away from a black box approach. Now, you can tune the reasoning effort, manually manage your prompt cache, and literally let the model write its own JavaScript orchestrate tools without needing constant, annoying round trips to your server.
Let's zoom in on this explicit prompt caching, because what does it actually mean for your wallet? Well, it means if you have a massive system prompt that you reuse within a 30-minute window, you just tell the API to cache it. Sure, the initial write costs a slight premium at 1.25x, but every single read after that keeps a massive 90% discount. For bursty traffic, you're looking at roughly an 89% savings on your static prompt costs. That is a total game changer. And the reasoning controls? Unprecedented. You can dial the effort from none for lightning-fast templating all the way up to max. So migrating from GPT 5.5 isn't just a simple model swap anymore. It's a tuning pass where you might actually drop your reasoning effort down a level to save cash without losing any quality. There's also a pro setting to force the model to prioritize quality over speed and an ultra mode that spins up parallel subagents for those really massive multi-step tasks.
Section 3. The dual model strategy. This is about elevating your entire content pipeline. So why should you care about all these backend updates? Well, let's turn this into a real strategic masterclass. Enter the quality adversarial pipeline. It's actually already the default auto mode in Microsoft Copilot Researcher. The concept is super simple but incredibly powerful. One model acts as the drafter, then a completely different model, and this is key, from a different vendor, acts as an aggressive critic. Finally, you, the human arbiter, sign off on the disagreements. It's explicitly designed to catch the errors that a single model is guaranteed to miss.
But why go through this trouble? Look at these 2026 controlled study numbers. They prove an undeniable fact. In an isolated session review, errors are caught at a 28.6% rate. But same session self-review?
That drops to 24.6%. And if you ask it a second time in that same session, it actually gets worse, dropping to 21.7%. Think about that. Having a fresh context review vastly outperforms lazily asking the exact same chat window to double-check its own work.
And here is the absolute kicker, the cost. With the new Terra pricing, taking an 8,000 token draft and running a 1,000 token critique pass costs a mere 3.5 cents. We are talking literal pennies to have a frontier AI rigorously attack and fact-check your work before a human even lays eyes on it.
Which brings us to Section 4, AI bias and blind spots, and why going cross-vendor is absolutely crucial.
There's actual peer-reviewed science behind why that second model needs to be from a completely different vendor, and it makes algorithmic bias incredibly tangible. AI models aren't objective truth machines, right? They have opinions baked into their training. For instance, Anthropic's Claude family has a negative bias score, meaning it actively prefers concise, tighter answers. Gemini and Llama have high positive scores, so they reward longer, padded answers. GPT sits somewhere near neutral. This literally proves that a Claude critic and a GPT drafter have non-overlapping blind spots. They fail in completely different ways, which makes them the perfect partners.
Now, you've got to pay attention to this. Format bias completely dominates the judging process. The bias toward Markdown formatting sits between 0.10 and a massive 0.76. Meanwhile, position bias is practically negligible. This means an AI reviewer can literally be seduced by pretty formatting over actual factual quality. If the draft looks nice, the AI judge is heavily biased to just nod and say it's good.
So, how do we actually combat this? We follow a strict playbook. Number 1. Always use a fresh session to avoid context contamination. Number 2. Always use a different vendor to ensure those biases don't overlap. Number 3. Strip out the pretty formatting and use a structured critique prompt that demands specific citations for every flaw it finds. And number 4. A human rules on every single finding. This ensures the AI just surfaces the disagreements while you retain ultimate editorial control.
All right, final stop, Section 5, the final verdict. Let's put it all together.
Let's wrap up this explainer. This right here is your new mantra going forward. 2 models, 1 editor, 0 shared blind spots. Integrating the cheap, fast tiers of GPT 5.6 like Terra and Luna as your drafters, alongside a completely separate critic model, mathematically raises the floor of your work's quality. But remember, it doesn't certify the ceiling. Only a human arbiter can do that. The models will find the flaws and they will debate them, but only a human editor can guarantee the final product.
Look, with cross-vendor critiques now costing literally pennies thanks to these new pricing tiers, the old excuse that AI review is just too expensive, it's completely gone. Leaving your AI blind spots unchecked is a liability you simply can no longer justify in your workflow. The tools are here, they are incredibly cheap, and the science absolutely proves they work. The only question left is, are you going to upgrade your pipeline or get left behind?